Welcome back to One Piece Anime. This is special number 2, part 1. I originally planned to do the review of the OVAs and the shorts for this particular part. I'm sorry I postponed that to special number 3. I figured though, why not take a break basically, just have one talk about my favorite characters basically for the franchise basically. And this one is basically my top 10 female characters for the whole franchise. For One Piece. There isn't that many female characters, surprisingly, and a lot of them I don't really care for. Like, I don't have much opinion. Like, Miss Monday, I don't have much opinion on her, or Miss Golden Week. Like some of the family members of the Baroque works, I don't have much opinion on them at all. It's just that they appear like a few times, and that's it. Nothing much is to these characters at all. There's nothing interesting about these characters. Also, I gotta throw in and also there's also the character Conus. She's kind of interesting. I'm having my first honorable mention. Conus is definitely on the honorable mention. I think along with the sisters of my number one, two of the Gorgon sisters. One is the tall one. I don't remember her name. Green hair, turns anaconda, and of course the other sister. But the older one is on the list. And people who know me knows this one is my number one. This is not gonna be a surprise to anybody. But yeah, those are the only ones my honorable mentions. But yeah, all right. Let's start with and Lola is also honorable mention as well. I gotta throw her on there. First one is Paranoia. Paranoia, basically formerly of the Megagoria's, Megagoria's Thriller Bark crew, which after Thriller Bark she appeared at least 3 times. First she appeared in Friends Whereabouts, basically, which came during the last part of Amazon Lily, which you're seeing in the anime, and of course seeing the covers. She also appeared a couple more times after that. After this ended, she also appeared, during the post-war arc. And she appeared in Return to Stability and one of the specials, which, okay, that's actually quite interesting. She's actually one of 3 characters that actually appeared in that special who hardly appeared in anything else. She briefly fights one of the villains, interrupting the fight between Luffy and one of my other favorite characters on the list. Interrupts that fight, and it's nice the fact they have her show up, and Luffy does not remember her at all, despite the fact I kind of understand why. Because he barely interacted with her, and I kind of get the reason why he didn't remember. And I think he should ask Usopp basically who this woman was, or at least Zoro, because she's the one who actually sort of, how should I put this, interacted with him the most. And it's kind of a hint of maybe Zoro maybe had a thing for her. I don't know. It's just quite bizarre. Half the time he found her annoying, but her last known physical appearance in the series was the Return to Stability arc. And after that, she appeared in like 1 or 2 cover stories after that, and that's really it. Kind of an interesting character herself, and she's quite gorgeous. But out of all the female characters on this list, she's actually one of the more younger ones, surprisingly. And they never revealed exactly how old she is in the series. It took Oda himself to reveal that during the first half of the series, she was actually 23. After the time skip, she's 25. And she does change her outfit. Yeah, that's the only thing that changes about her is her outfit. She doesn't grow any taller. Just that first she wears looks like a white t-shirt, long sleeve shirt and shorts, and then after time jump she switches to a black dress. That's really it. I thought I threw her on here because she's an interesting character, and she's quite funny. And the fact that when she's in ghost form, she can't really do very much. And I keep thinking, half the time, where's her body? Or that somehow later on she got the ability to fly, even though that she's supposed to be asleep. And they did cut this out of the anime, where when Usopp basically knocked her out, they mentioned that she was foaming at the mouth. That you actually don't see that in the anime, but you do see that in the manga. I kind of get the reason why, because it's kind of awkward to see that in the anime. And here's something I thought was a little odd, though. Usopp kept calling her little girl, even though that she's actually a little bit older than he is, like about 5 or 6 years older, and yet he calls her little girl. Honestly, it makes no sense. Yeah. All right. Number 9, Wanda of the Minx. Yep. Only appears in the Zoo Island arc, surprisingly. But I found her to be a pretty interesting character, and she surprisingly bears a striking resemblance to another character who's on this list, and she wears basically her attire. I thought she was a pretty fun character, and I think, as far as I can tell, she just appeared in Zoo Island, and that's it so far. She might come back for the Wano Island, the Wano arc, which I've heard is coming up next year. She might come back for that, but otherwise, though, she's a pretty interesting character, really good fighter. But yeah, of course, there's none of making this list basically who does go with the crew, and she's a little bit higher because she actually appears more in one arc. Next, of course, is Cammy, making her first appearance in the Sabaody arc. Yep, that's her first appearance. After that, she appears like one other time during pre-time skip. I think she appears once in post-war, but I think after that, she doesn't appear again until Fishman Island. She appears a lot more in that. And fun character, and she's probably the only mermaid in the entire show who actually wears a t-shirt. Because most time when you think of mermaid, you think of a mermaid who usually is like topless, but sometimes also wearing a seashell bra, and of course the fish part of her. But she actually wears a t-shirt, and the reason why, and the t-shirt is actually from a line of clothing made by her pet, Starfish. Which honestly makes no sense. The fact that Starfish, who is a pet, and yet he later on has a very successful business, and yet she still refers to him as her pet and her teacher, which honestly makes no sense. Fun character, and both in the dub and the sub, she refers to everyone with the Chun honorific, which I kind of thought that was a little odd. Now, I would have thought with the dub they would not do that, but for some reason they allowed to keep doing that for some reason. I have no idea why. Because normally when they dub stuff, they don't have people address each other with honorifics. But for some reason, she was allowed to keep hers. Yeah, it's only one of a couple times I've seen it where a character speaks English and addresses some people with honorifics. The only other time I've seen this is actually during a 3-parter during the final season, currently the final season of the 2012 Teen Material series, where Usagi refers to Leonardo as Leonardo's son. Yeah, and of course Leonardo respects him back by calling him Usagi's son. That's the only time I've seen it where you have a character who speaks English, either is an American or from a Japanese thing, and they address other characters with honorifics. A little odd though, but yeah, she's an absolutely fun character, and she's one of those characters Sanji likes to fawn over. Yeah, and the fact that she was also the instigator. She was one of the reasons why Luffy had to break into an auction house in order to rescue her, because she was about to be sold into slavery. And what did Luffy do after he punched one of the after he got one of his friends got shot? He punched the Celestial Dragon right in the face. And of course, one of my other favorite characters freed her from her her bondage, basically removing her collar that was around her neck. And I love the fact they brought her back, and they kind of changed it where originally she was working for one of my other favorite characters as sort of like a co-worker and then sort of like an employee of his. And then later on, she worked as a waitress at Madame Sherry, who is, get this, the sister of Arlong. Yeah, the main villain of the Arlong Park arc. Yeah, and she is a mermaid, half shark person, which is a bit odd. Yeah, it's kind of weird. They kind of explain it in the Fishman Island arc, and it's quite bizarre, to say the least. Alright, number 7 is Carrot. Fun character. Appeared in 2 story arcs so far. Actually, in the anime, she's appeared not only in the 2 canon arcs, which is Zoo and Whole Cake, she's also appeared in Marine Rookie, which I thought that was really fun. The fact that she was actually took part in a filler story, mind you. And no one knew she was even on board at all. And she's gone through at least a few different outfits. And I think of her as a fun character. And Excuse me. And there's a theory rolling around that after this arc is finished up, that somewhere down the line she's going to become a official member of the crew. I personally would be happy for that because she's that interesting of a character and good fighter, and plus she's cute. Like another character who's on my male favorite list, which I'll get to him in the next video. Excuse me. But yeah, she's just a little fun character. Bars like Trista, like all the other minks, except for one, surprisingly. Alright, number 6 is Rebecca, a character who only appeared for one story arc. Though she did appear she did appear briefly as part of the reviewer stuff toward the Zoo Island. And Rebecca I thought was a really interesting character because they pretty much gave her a good amount of development. And the fact that she's actually one female character who actually becomes good friends with Luffy and doesn't fall in love with him at all. One of the very few who doesn't. And here's kind of the thing, unlike other women Luffy has met, she's actually younger than he is. Yeah. You see, Rebecca is 16. And Luffy, when Luffy first meets her, he's 19. Basically, he's 3 years older than Rebecca, which makes her the only female character he has met who's actually younger than he is. Like, actually one of two. The other one, of course, is another character I'll talk about in a minute. But this one's actually 3 years younger, like way younger than Luffy, like exactly 3 years younger, which I'm a little bit surprised about. And she kind of views him as just a friend, not as someone she would like fall in love with. Though there's kind of a hint that maybe a possible attraction between two of them, but it was never fully stated, and it wasn't all that implied. It's kind of thinking, oh yeah, she kind of likes him, but not much as a romantic, so probably as a friend. And plus, she's actually a pretty good fighter. Though, after her father came back from being a toy for 10 years, she decided to stop fighting. Yeah. Though, I kind of think it's bizarre, though, that she wears a bikini armor. Yeah, for a female gladiator, she puts on bikini armor like she's Red Sonja. I have no idea why Oda thought this was a good idea, yet they had another female gladiator in the arena, and she wears, like, regular armor. And yet, Rebecca wears bikini armor for some reason. And the fact that when you look at her, she looks like she's half naked most of the time. And I'm like, Luffy is probably not even intimidated by that. Yeah. Alright. Number 5. And this is another character who's actually a little bit younger than Luffy. Though, basically, she's younger than Luffy by at least 1 year. And she was basically featured in more than like 1 or 2 stories. She was featured in a bunch. She was featured in the entire Baroque Works saga. Every single arc. Actually, she made her first appearance in the Laboon arc, which I think is kind of like a prelude to it. Though in the anime, it only took up 2 episodes. I think in the manga, I think it took like 4 or 5 chapters, I think it was. Yeah. But she's an integral part to the entire saga, and she's featured several times since the arc ended. Which, that's interesting. She first showed up, first time she showed up after Alabasta arc wrapped up. She made a cameo toward the end of, during the post-war Island arc, the post-war arc. She also appeared in, of course, during the end of Dressrosa. Basically, anytime there's like a really big story, and and the character seeing the paper, the only other time basically that she's seen where it's not involving her reading a newspaper is when she goes to Revere, which was the last time she was seen in both the manga and the anime. But yeah, interesting. And of course, there's also a funny line at last time she was seen where her father left her pictures basically of possible suitors for her, and she decided to throw them all out the window. Yeah. I came up with a really interesting theory that the only guy she wants to marry is the guy who's currently the Minister of Environment. Yeah, the Environment Minister. Because, yeah, it's kind of hints that those two have a thing for each other. I wouldn't mind it in the series if they actually did that. It probably would be an interesting development for her, especially since she's known this guy since she was like 11 years old. Yeah, since she was a kid, she's known this guy, so it's kind of natural this would happen. Yep. Alright. Number 4. Tashigi. Yeah. Made her first appearance in the Rogue Island arc. Well, yeah, I think it's a long time, I think it is. it's a town that comes before the Grand Line. After that, she's featured in Alabasta, and then after Alabasta, she's not seen again until Marineford, and after Marineford, she's seen in Punk Hazard, and then basically a brief cameo toward the end of Dressrosa. And she herself is a quite interesting character in the fact she's a pretty competent swordswoman, and she's a very good person. She's very good at basically giving orders, and well, somewhat anyways. And they try best they can to develop this character. And here's kind of something odd about her: she's always seen wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, I'm like most of the Marines seen the series usually wear like traditional uniform shirts. She's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and yet by the time she's last seen in the series, she's already promoted to be a captain. When she was first seen in the series, she was I think she was a master. I think she was uh, a master chief. I think she was. Yeah, I think that's when she was first shown up, and she was actually very competent. It's like her best moments were during Alabasta and Punk Hazard, but a lot of the time she doesn't really do very much at all because she just carries around her sword, and yet at one point her Punk Hazard sword gets broken. All of a sudden that she must carry a spare sword someplace. But yeah, and the fact that she heavily interacts with the Straw Hat crew a lot more in Punk Hazard than she does during Alabasta, which I thought was really nice. And the fact that Sanji basically helped out her men, had her men basically help out with the kids that are basically being experimented for giantism. And also, I thought was really funny when they had her and Smoker switch bodies, where Smoker, when he was in her body, he unbuttoned her shirt, had it partially open, of course, carried out his stick, and of course smoking. And then when they switched back, she was so embarrassed the fact that her shirt was open, and she quickly decided to close it up really quickly. Yeah, so she's fun and kind of a cute character, but I kind of wish basically that Oda would give a little more to do, and have appear in a lot more than two major story arcs. Because a lot of the time when she appears, with the exception of Alabasta and with the exception of the arc she was introduced, which was Longtown, Alabasta, and Punk Hazard, with the exception of these three arcs, a lot of times she really doesn't really do very much. But she's a pretty competent character. Also, this is a really funny moment in Alabasta when Luffy and Usopp are in this bar and they ask for water, and Smoker and Teddy are basically sitting at the bar, and then they turn over and they spit water right in their face, and I thought that was so funny. Yeah. Alright, number 3 is Nami! Yep, the resident navigator, and of course the first female crew member of the crew, of the Straw Hats. And probably by far one of the very few women in anime to actually have orange hair. Yeah, and surprisingly, no one calls her like, well, there's kind of a reason for that because, well, she had tangerines. She basically, her adopted mother had a tangerine farm, and a lot of time they wouldn't sell it very well. But even after that, they freed her village. They decided to put tangerines on the Going Merry, and then after the Going Merry sunk, well, before they sunk, they took they cleaned out the whole ship, and then they had to briefly the tangerines taken away. Then she got back, and then they put the tangerines on the ship itself, which was really the Taos and Sunny. And the fact, all the thing about her is the fact that she loves tangerines. And she has a tattoo on her arm, on her I think it's her left arm. Originally, it was the Arlong Crew tattoo, which was later also seen on the arm of Hody Jones during the Fishman Island arc. She later replaced that tattoo with a pinwheel and an orange. The pinwheel was actually a nod to the guy who was the closest thing she had to a father, which is, I don't remember the guy's name, but the way he was dressed, I could kind of say he could be like the police chief of the town, which kind of like he is, and he kind of acts like either like the police chief or the mayor, or like combination, or it could be like, I'm not really sure, maybe just a village head, but to me, he kind of looks like a police chief. They never specifically stated exactly what his position was, but everybody just follows him. He basically acts like leader of the village anyways. But yeah, Nami's always hot, and she always, a lot of the time, and she goes through many different outfits, and I talk about many. And then after the time skip, Oda had her outfit was simply her wearing her sandal high heels, blue jeans with a buckle with the buried dollar signs, and a bikini bra. That was her attire for the first couple story arcs, and of course they changed it a little bit later on, where she wore like a dress. And then for some reason during Dressrosa, I don't really know why Oda thought this was a good idea. We're halfway through the story, she disappears, and disappears for like 30 chapters, and then she'll show up again until toward the end, and she's seen throughout Zoo and, of course, Whole Cake. I don't really get why Oda thought this was a good idea to have her get removed, but okay, fine. But she's still a fun character. At first, she didn't really do very much. She had a particular baton weapon, but didn't really do very much anything. And then later, Usopp made her a clan baton during when they were in Alabasta. So basically, a very powerful weapon. She tested out on, I think it was not Miss Monday per se. I think it was Mr. One's partner. I think it was Tuesday. I think it was. I'm not really sure, but yeah. All right. Number 2 is Nika Robin. Yep, a woman who is, well, at the time before Frankie joined the crew, she was the oldest of the entire crew, because when she first joined the crew, she was 28, and now she's 30. Where during the time skip, her skin got a little bit darker, she looked taller, and her chest got bigger. And apparently, someone noted that her skin got a little bit lighter, though I thought her skin got a little bit darker. And unlike most women who are drawn pretty much mostly the same, she's actually one of the very few women drawn differently, because she has a very strange looking nose. I've heard she's a representation, she's a nod to how women are usually depicted from Russia. Okay, fine. And the fact she has pretty interesting Dofuru power, where she can just do this with her hands, and have hands pop out all over the place. And also she can create duplicates of herself. She developed that after time skip. And she also can create giant feet. And her power is very useful. I mean, heck, even before she became a pirate, like when she was living by herself because her mother was out basically finding out about the power glyphs, which is one of the things about her. She actually used her power to basically do all the chores around her house. And here's the thing. When her home was destroyed, she was only 8 years old, and she was the only survivor. There was no other survivors, because some idiot admiral decided to blow up a ship full of survivors. And she was the only survivor, and yet I thought this was really stupid. And the fact she was given a bounty at 8 years old, 79 million berry, and they call it a devil child because she's got Dofuru powers, and yet all the rest of the Straw Hats, they got like 3 other ones who got Dofuru powers, and they're not called Devil Child, and yet for some reason she's referred to as Devil Child's nickname, and yet no one refers to that the whole series. And like some other, I thought this was a little weird. Apparently the name Nico is actually her, well, kind of like her familiar name, well, basically kind of like her last name, and her name Robin is like her proper first name. It's kind of backwards. I thought it was a little odd, though. It's how the series works. All right, and my number 1, and for this one, no people who know me, when I talk about this series, they're not very surprised. My number 1 is Boa Hancock. Smoking hot woman, black hair, 12 years older than Luffy, and described in the anime and the manga as one of the most beautiful women in the whole world. And also, you gotta have one thing in common. Basically, with this woman being in love with Luffy, that means that Luffy has one thing in common with Goku. The fact that a woman who falls in love with has the same color hair he does. Yeah, that's one thing that Goku and Luffy have in common. Women who basically love him with the same color hair they do. Though Luffy's got a bit more thinner hair than Goku does. And of course, Luffy is a Dofuru user and Goku is an alien. But yeah, one big difference is that Boa Hancock is way taller than Luffy. Yeah, when she first meets Luffy, he's 17, she's 29. And she's also one of the 7 warlords. And somehow she kept the position after her actions in Marineford. Even though she was attacking Marines and kind of helping Luffy escape, she somehow kept the position. Somehow. It's never explained how. But, and her Dofuru power is that she can basically create like this with her hands, and she causes people to turn to stone like she's freaking Medusa. Yeah. But otherwise, though, that's really it for my female characters. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'm going to review my top 15 male characters who are not Luffy. Yeah, Luffy's my favorite overall male character. These are the ones who are not Luffy. Alright, that's really it. So stay tuned for part 2 when I get a chance to do it. Okay? But until then, I will see you there. Bye.